How can we combat against rising supply chain attacks? I'm Mike Loader. Ending Cyber Risk starts now. Hello everyone and welcome back to Ending Cyber Risk, presented by the team at Arctic Wolf, where each episode we unpack the ways we can put an end to risky cyber behaviour. On this episode we dive into the rise of supply chain attacks and key strategies to mitigate the risks they present. Joining me now is Mark Thomas, Director of Security Services ANZ at Arctic Wolf. Wonderful to have you with me. What is a supply chain attack for those out there who are unaware? We've just had Prime Day, so I'm sure there was a lot of supplies being sent around.
Well, thanks for having me. A supply chain attack is when one or more organisations is targeted through a third party. So you think of your providers around payroll, HR, or IT outsourcing, for example. Now, if a company becomes compromised, attackers then use that access as a backdoor into all the other organisations that software or hardware serves, and they do so at scale. So it creates this kind of trickle-down or flow-on effect where all those customers are then at risk of their environment being compromised as well.
Yeah, it reminds me of the insidious nature of termites, for instance. You might not know something's wrong until you go to use something. But how does a supply chain attack occur? What are we seeing, that backdoor you mentioned earlier? Where's that?
Yeah, these attacks are made possible not only because organisations are so interconnected these days, but a lot of organisations just don't have that visibility into the underlying infrastructure that supports business-to-business transactions. Employees might be granted with too much access, or they might have access to sensitive data through poor security controls. So once a bad actor is inside the network, they'll carry out further attacks on that victim's downstream customers, or maybe even their upstream business partners. But past attacks have really involved phishing, rogue software updates, stealing user credentials, and it's particularly concerning if victim organisations reuse that same password to access different systems or companies. In those cases, a bad actor ends up having keys to your entire kingdom.
Yeah, it's a scary thought, but why are supply chain attacks on the rise? What's so, interesting to the attackers? What's sort of drawing them in, I suppose?
Well, the world is far more interconnected than it's ever been. There's a lot more hardware and software available, a lot of valuable intellectual property and data out there. So all of that, those assets, I guess, there's a larger attack surface, and it creates opportunities for the bad guys. Cyber criminals looking to take that data and sell it online, or even potentially cause intentional service disruption. Every time an organisation provides access to its data or its infrastructure to other entities, that presents an opportunity for attackers to strike. So we often see these attacks occur when one organisation gets compromised and they happen to be connected to another provider, and then hackers will abuse that trust as a means to conduct further attacks, being it stealing intellectual property or perhaps deploying additional ransomware as well.
Okay, Mark, thank you for that. What are some recent attacks, examples of what's been going on? What industries are particularly vulnerable at the moment? Take us through what we're seeing sort of day to day at the moment.
So extremely interconnected industries, so think like healthcare, transportation and logistics, they're especially at risk because they have so many third-party vendors that they rely on. In 2020, for example, one of the highest profile supply chain attacks that has ever been conducted was SolarWinds compromise. It's a network infrastructure monitoring firm. They inadvertently spread malicious code to thousands of organizations worldwide. So it's not that all supply chain attacks are that large, but we are seeing them increase in frequency over the last couple of years.
All right, well, let's touch on what small to medium businesses and I guess larger organisations can do to mitigate that risk. That's what we're all about. Give us a rundown.
So your security posture, it's only as strong as the weakest third-party provider that has access into your environment. The most resilient organisations, they recognise that there is inherent risk and therefore they're establishing minimum security baselines with their third-party vendors. So think, what is it that I require to uplift my security posture with my third parties? Educating your employees, adopting risk management strategies, having some form of 24/7 security monitoring in place, having your systems updated as well. And of course, you'd want to have a regular assessment just to ensure that the security controls that you have in place are adequate and appropriate for your environment.
Yeah, very well said by you, as always. I want to thank you for joining us on the program and, of course, highlighting what's going on out there in the world of supply chain attacks. It's strange times, especially as we are all online more than ever before.
Cheers. Thanks for having me.
All right, this is Ticker. We'll be right back in just a moment. Hopefully you've learned something from our discussion thus far. Be well.
You're watching Ticker. We'll have more in just a few minutes.